In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Welcome to Be the Wellness Podcast, where we help you master your body, mind, and the experience of life through insightful conversation, interviews with experts and thought leaders, all with a side of marital banter and some good old-fashioned humor.
Yes, we are your hosts, Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're committed to helping you live life fully expressed physically, mentally, and experientially. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation.
Welcome, everybody, to Be the Wellness Podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert are here on a rainy, gloomy Los Angeles day.
A properly rainy day.
Yeah.
I think it was properly rainy last time we recorded as well, which is indicative of the current weather patterns here.
Yeah, it's bordering on unacceptable.
Yeah, it's definitely the rainiest winter I can remember.
In LA.
In LA, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is just in the last 10 years.
But to be fair, when the sun does come out or there's a break in the rain and we take the dogs for a walk or we go outside, I will say the plants are really, 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 really stoked about this rainy weather, and the flowers are so happy and vibrant, and everything's just like so well nurtured and nourished.
Watered.
That I feel like, all right, we could take the hit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, It's really not that big of a deal, and we need the rain.
Yes.
But, and actually, somebody we ran into whilst dog walking the other day was saying there's going to be plants and things that are blooming that people have never even seen before.
I was like, wait.
That's actually a pretty good point, because this is fundamentally a desert river basin, is what LA is, with a bunch of city on top of it, and like there's all sorts of species of plants that lie dormant in that sort of environment. Things that only bloom.
When they finally get enough rain.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I really love it. And now that we are part-time employees of the plants, I don't mind.
Yes.
As Dennis McKenna would say, he works for the plants.
Right.
We work part-time for them, so part-time. It's cool.
It's a side hustle.
Yeah, it's definitely a side hustle, but but nonetheless, we have the backs of the plants, so to speak. We are super excited because we have a new offering for you folks. And, obviously we love to create awesome events and retreat offerings and all that good stuff. This offering's a little bit different. It is not a new retreat, but rather it is a new partnership with a firm. And a firm is a financing company that will allow you to make payments towards your retreat fees. So we're really excited about this because, as you know, we try to make our retreats accessible. We try to make it so that folks can get out to them. And that's why we've always launched them so far in advance. So people could sign up, make payments, make it easy, kind of simplify the sort of hit that it took on your monthly budget. And a firm is going to allow us to give even greater flexibility with that.
Yes, 100%. Yes. So where before, like what Vanessa was saying, like the monthly payments were always structured around how far in advance you paid to sign up, because fundamentally you were just making payments towards the retreat. With a firm, it allows that to be spread out between 3 to 36 months, depending on how the whole thing winds up for you and your process with them. And that can happen up until the day before the retreat.
Right. Yes.
Maybe not the day before the retreat.
I would say
things, generally speaking, sell out a solid year in advance. So,
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really excited about this because, we've always been trying to make it easier for folks, but the only problem we come up against is oftentimes people don't know their schedule a year in advance. It takes a little bit longer to figure that piece out. So this really gives you like all the flexibility in the world. You can sign up, select your length of term with them, and it really puts it all in your court. You set up an account with them. You can pay it off as fast or as slow as you decide. There's all of the flexibility for you to manage it yourself. And that's another really great thing about it, is that in the past, if you wanted to make a change or, wanted to change anything about your payment plan with us, you'd have to email us. We have to email you back. We have to do all the things. You can log into your account with Affirm. You can deal with it. You can set it up. It's all managed by you.
Yeah. It's a much more seamless process.
Totally.
Top to bottom.
Totally.
So it's a good thing.
Yeah. We are really, really excited about this because, for one, it's actually really hard to get approved as a partner with them. So we were really excited that they, accepted our application and that we can offer this for our retreats. And it just opens up a whole new world of flexibility for you guys to come to our awesome events, which we have amazing events coming up. We've still got room for a few folks in Montana, both individual females and males. We've got room in Costa Rica, and we've got room at our Rhythmia retreat in December. So all of those will be available for the Affirm, except for the Rhythmia retreat. We've got more of a direct line with them in the way we set up that process. But both Montana and Costa Rica will be launching other retreats for next year. This is really going to make it super flexible for you guys. So we're really stoked.
Yeah, and it's super easy. You just go to our website. You'll find anywhere on the experiences page. It's kind of all over the place, the little Affirm button with a learn more link, and you can check it out and see if it's right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all our good news for this week.
That's all the good news.
But okay, moving on. We have a really awesome podcast. Today we wanted to take a break from our guests. We love having our guests on, and it's always amazing to speak with different people and their specialties about different things in life. But today we wanted to talk about something really important that has made a huge difference for us in our health and wellness journey. And we think we can pretty confidently say will make a big difference for you folks out there as well.
Yeah. And what are we talking about?
We're talking about the big D word.
D, and not Dallas.
No, and not diet.
And not Denver either.
We're talking about discipline.
Yes.
Just saying that word conjures up a whole lot of emotion, right? Like I find myself when I hear someone say the word discipline to me, I immediately have this guttural reaction like, oh no, like someone's trying to take away my freedom.
Right.
Or conversely, what, you don't think I'm disciplined enough? Like,
yeah, totally.
are you putting me down? Like there's this whole thing that comes up with hearing the word discipline and, people sort of projecting to you that the keys to success are within this construct of discipline. But I think if we can learn to embrace it, if we can learn to make it our ally, we really can see ourselves start to have new success and experience within the practice of whatever it is we're trying to create than ever before.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, discipline is really about the process.
Right.
And that's something that we adhere to, a lot in our programming and everything that we're doing is that this isn't some short-term strategy. It's these long-term strategies that over time just become the way you are. And then all of a sudden it doesn't require discipline. It's just who you are. Right.
Yes.
But it's those first steps and in, doing it all consistently until it no longer requires discipline.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So the first thing I want to talk about with discipline is kind of the energy around it, because I think this is something that has really made a difference for me in my journey. And, when you hear the word discipline or you think about discipline, it sort of evokes this feeling of like suffering, right? It's like you almost have to sacrifice or suffer or almost like beat yourself down a little bit. It kind of conjures up this like almost depressed like...
Yeah, well, it's like if you have to be disciplined about something, it's probably not something you want to do.
Right.
Right? So there's like this negative connotation that comes along with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so one of the things I think can make a huge difference for people in their mindset is to just listen to the voice that goes off inside of your head. So I'll give you an example. I was going for a run yesterday, actually, and I was running on the beach, and there was a rock wall like maybe 20 feet away. And in my mind, I said, okay, well, I'll turn around at the rock wall. And then the second voice came in and it said, well, I mean, you're close enough to the rock wall.
Right,
Why don't you just turn around now, right? And I caught myself because... what I realize is how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So in that moment, I have a choice of the kind of person I'm going to be. I can be the kind of person who actually just follows through with the commitment that I made in that initial sort of thought process.
Right.
And what I knew, was a good it was a good marker for me. That was a good goal. That was like, okay, yeah, I'll get there and I'll turn around. And so what I think is important is that you listen to that second voice and you kind of listen to like, why is it weighing in? Where did it come from?
Yeah.
You know, why is that even trying to distract you? And just notice the difference between the first voice and the second voice. You know, notice the voice that says, no, I want to follow through with this, and the voice that's trying to talk you out of it. Now, the second thing I wanted to do is I wanted to tell that voice, shut up. Stop trying to distract me. I want to do this. And I started arguing with it in a way, right? So, yeah, this is what goes on in my head. Welcome to my world. But, you know, you start getting into this dialogue. Well, no, I mean, I might as well just go there. I've got this amount of time on my run. That's a good mark. You start having this argument inside of your head. And so, you know, whatever part of me that wanted to override that voice started getting sort of aggravated and aggressive with it. Like, shut up, I'm going to do it. You know, and so you have this dichotomy of this, like, you know, softer voice that's saying, no, I want to follow through with this goal, and this other voice that's trying to talk you out of it. And it's almost like they're in an argument. And what has really been beneficial for me is instead of trying to fight that voice that's trying to talk me out of it, instead of trying to overpower it with aggression and like, you know, this super, I don't know, like this super aggressive energy, I actually have taught myself to start coaching myself. So like pretend that person, you're coaching yourself now. Be your own coach, be your own teacher, be your own mother. You know, if your kid doesn't want to do something, and you, you know, as a mom or as a coach, you say, okay, come on, you can do this. Take a deep breath. Let's just get through this. Only a couple more steps. You start coaching that child through it. You're much more likely to get a good response than if you just start yelling at that kid, you better do it.
Right. Allegedly.
You know?
Yeah.
Allegedly. I mean, maybe you know that you're the kid that needs to be yelled at, and if
Right.
so, that's fine. But I do think it's worth considering. Like, why do you have this voice that takes over that's so mean?
Yeah.
Why do you think that that's the way that you have to override that initial, you know, override the opposition that you're experiencing? Try being your own coach. Try, you know, coaching yourself through that, whatever that means. You know, if it's about like focusing on the breath, if it's about saying, okay, just take 3 more steps and then we'll reassess from there. Like whatever it is to coach yourself through that process, try doing that instead of just yelling at yourself, you know, because I don't know about for you guys, but for me, that doesn't really elicit a positive response that makes me want to strive for more. And the way that I've been most motivated in my life is by a good coach. So if you can be your own best coach, you're going to get so much further than just trying to fight yourself the whole way.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And, you know, the thing that can be sneaky about that voice, whatever the first voice that's trying to stop you 20 feet short of your goal,
right, is
that it's not always like abrupt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where you're like, wait, where did this come from? It can often come in as like, it's like it's going to let you off the hook.
Yes.
Oh, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It's like, oh, no, it's fine. I mean, what's really the difference? I mean, if you ran to the end and then came all the way back, it's 40 extra feet on your run. Like, what's the big deal, you know?
Yes.
And so it can be really sort of insidious like that. It just kind of creeps in. And then you're like, wait a second, you know, pretty soon you notice this thing that you're, you know, stopping 20 feet short of a lot of your goals and letting yourself off the hook for, you know, some reason or another. And I think this is the same like exact thing that happens with diet stuff. Oh, you know, you were so good all week long. Man, you could just have this, whatever it is, you know, a triple stack of waffles or, you know, like whatever the thing is, that there's that rationalization piece that starts to run, that script that starts to run that fundamentally lets you off of the hook. And I think especially when it comes to diet, what you're saying is exactly right in that you have to have some compassion for yourself. You know, it needs to be, but compassionate and being a pushover are 2 different things.
Right.
You know, so you have to work your way through it. All right, well, what is it? What's the risk versus gain here? You know what I mean? And have this sort of like, you know, adult conversation as opposed to, like you're saying, the shouting match of just trying to stuff that thing down, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think if you can, I mean, we know this from, you know, just it's a coaching method, right? It's just like talking people through the pros and cons and what they see out of this piece and what they see out of this piece to inevitably get to the point that they then realize and make a decision on their own that the choice A was the one that they wanted to go with, right? So it's exactly like you're saying. You just go through that and okay, well, what would the outcome be if you did this? What would the outcome be if you did this? And then try to take yourself out of the moment a little bit for that, because in the moment, stopping 20 feet short is not a big deal. I mean, it really isn't. You're like, all right, so 40 extra feet. Like, what, physically that has such a minute impact on your overall run. But cumulatively over time, that letting yourself off the hook or that caving to the feeling just lets that wolf grow, right? So it's like
absolutely.
there's, in each man, 2 dogs fight, and which one wins? The one you feed the most, right?
Right.
And so if you constantly feed it, it's like, it's that cute little puppy in the corner that's like, hey, you can just come over
cuddle.
here. We can just cuddle as long as you bring me some snacks, and pretty soon all you're doing is cuddling and feeding your dog.
Absolutely. And I think I'm glad that you said this, because it really brings me to the next piece of this.
That's what I'm here for.
Which is that you have to set the intention for no excuses. And, I remember, I think we're 90s kids, so there must have been a sticker or something that said like, no excuses, or it was like a no fear sticker, but it said no excuses. But I remember there was like a mean mug
like
kind of face that came along with it. And it was like, no excuses, you know, like it kind of gives you this, you're being scolded by one of your parents for not taking out the garbage or something. But, before you set a goal, before you set an initiative, whatever that is, make that commitment for no excuses. And that doesn't mean you have to yell at yourself and be an a-hole to yourself about it. It just means calmly saying, I'm going to do this, and there's no excuses. This is the structure of it, and I'm just going to follow through with that. And once you make that commitment and you have that mindset of no excuses, guess what? That second voice that wants to come in and distract you and talk you out of it, it gets way less airplay because you've already made that decision. No, there's no excuses. Like I don't even need to entertain that conversation, because I already decided when I set out to do this thing that there were no excuses. And it can be quite beautiful. It doesn't have to be mean. You don't have to be aggressive. It can actually be quite playful and quite wonderful by just saying like, no, it's cool. I did that, but I did that conversation before I started. Right. And where I landed was no excuses on this. Yeah. And so now you have this freedom to be in what is the process with the knowing that that there are no excuses for accomplishing what you set out to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good. And so another thing to highlight here too is that in this pre-negotiation, because I think that's a really good way to look at it, right? You're like, hey, I'm going for a run. It's going to be this. And you do this while you're fresh and at home and like all excited to go for a run, and you make that negotiation. And so something to consider when you're doing that too, though, is to ensure that the goal that you're setting for yourself isn't so far out of reach that it becomes like a serious like breach of negotiation. You know what I mean? You're like, right. I'm going to run 26 miles today. And you're like, no, you're not.
Yes.
This is probably not. Well, you probably shouldn't. But,
right.
So ensuring that goal, whatever it is actually attainable, and that it's, you're not trying to bite off more than you can chew all at once, is going to make this process a lot easier.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. And, I think that it's just really important that, when you set out to do something and you think about the process, you identify what could be hard about it beforehand. So for instance, I tend to run faster than my cardiovascular system is really prepared to deal with. Right. I have a lot of fast twitch muscles, and so I start out really hot, right? I start running faster than I'm really prepared to deal with. And so what ends up happening is I get tired, I get winded, and then I think, I'm going to walk for a bit or whatever. So what I do before I go out on that run is I think, okay, remember, if this happens, first, try to pace yourself a little bit better, because you know that you're apt to run faster than you're really ready to support. But if you do get to that position, then remember that don't stop running, just slow down, even if it's almost a walking pace, slow down as long as you need to catch back up with yourself, and then try to find a better moderate pace. So what I do is I identify potential obstacles before I even get to them, so that when I get to it, I'm prepared for it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. I thought this might happen. I tried to temper my speed, but I didn't quite do a good enough job. So now I'm going to take this action.
Right.
And so identifying the problems before they occur is a lot like what we say, prepping your food for the week, right? Because you know that issue's coming, but if you're prepared for it, then you're going to be able to overcome it. You're going to be able to negotiate it so much easier.
Yeah, well, and you've already put the effort into avoiding the problem.
Yes.
It's like if you're, it's interesting because there's so many things in life that what you're saying would make total sense to people, right? So it's like running a business.
Right.
They're like, well, yeah, you create a business plan and you do this and you do this and you set reasonable goals and all, and you just march through it. But as soon as you start talking about nutrition and running specifically, all that seems to go away because somewhere internally, everybody thinks that we shouldn't have to know, or we shouldn't have to have a plan to do this, or we were born to run, right?
Right.
It's just as natural as it could be. How is it possible that we have to have a plan to know what to eat?
Right.
All of those things, those two things specifically confuse people. I mean, we see it all the time with folks, runners are a great example of this, where they want to run and they're going to run and they're going to run and they're going to run, and nobody's going to tell them anything about running. They're just doing it. But you get them into the gym for a strength training session and they're like, okay, well, what's the plan? How do we go about this? They're out of their element with it. And they internally, they let themselves off the hook with supposedly knowing what to do.
Right.
And everybody has their variation of that, right? There's probably power lifters who would be the exact opposite scenario if you introduce them to running. You're like, okay, in the gym, I can't tell you anything what to do, but you come out here to running, you're like, yeah, I'm an open book.
Right.
So I think having that dialogue with yourself and trying to identify, like you were saying, what those potential roadblocks are, where are the pieces of this that I'm closed off to outside information because I think I should already know how to do it, and just take a look at that stuff and say, well, if you already knew how to do it, you'd probably be doing it.
Yes.
What got you here?
Right.
What got you here is what you know how to do.
Right. And we see this a lot with the paleo world, right? Because a lot of people had gone paleo, had great success, saw some initial weight loss or some body composition changes, and then suddenly the same thing they were doing wasn't working anymore.
Yeah.
Yet they have become so indoctrinated that this is the path that they are frustrated that they can't see those same results by doing the same thing. And so, part of discipline is that you dance with what's happening in your life. This is where I think discipline can get really confusing, is that think, well, okay, I must need to do this better or harder or more disciplined. But, part of discipline is staying open to seeing where things can be renegotiated to work better.
Yeah.
And not being so committed to a dogma or a system or something that isn't working, where you can't pull back and reestablish a different process.
Right.
And so I think this is where people get frustrated, because they're trying to be super disciplined and they're trying to do it even harder. And they forget that sometimes discipline means pulling back, reassessing, and recalibrating how they're going to move forward again in that really systematic and committed way.
Yeah.
So I think it's, and so a lot of people just throw it all away, right? Then they just say, well, none of this is working. And so this is where discipline becomes like a partner with you. This isn't just, discipline is this cold stone wall over there that you're butting up against trying to make things happen. Discipline is a dance. This is a paying of attention to what's happening in your life and the response and how you're reacting to the scenario at hand, and creating a new system if need be.
Yeah. Can it be a line dance?
It can be a line dance.
It can be a line dance. Yeah. And no, I think that's 100% spot on. And it's almost like having a hierarchy of disciplines. Right. Where your overarching discipline is to do what works. Right. And to be I'm going to be disciplined about the fact that I'm always going to do what works. Yes. And so that's your fallback point, Right. So, and then you're like, okay, and paleo is another good example of this. So I'm going to be super disciplined about paleo because I think it's going to work. And you do it and you're disciplined about it and it works. And then it stops working. Fall back to that initial discipline of I'm going to do what works. Right. takes a little bit of research, a little bit of learning, a little bit of figuring out, and then you're like, aha, here's the thing. And then you're disciplined about that again, right? So it's
Yes.
like always having that fallback point of, not giving up and just ensuring that you have a place to work from.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I think that's where a lot of the despair, for lack of a better term, can come when it comes to nutrition stuff is and we've talked about this several times before, where if you try something and you fail, and then you try something else and you fail, and those failures accumulate.
Absolutely.
And they're rocks in a backpack. You know what I mean? They just get heavier and heavier and heavier. And you're like, man, none of this stuff is working.
Absolutely.
And so where the discipline really comes into play there is just taking that backpack off and setting it down and being like, no, I can empty this backpack and I can start filling it back up again, but I'm going to keep doing it until I find what's right,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we're talking about kind of sort of overarching themes about discipline, but, to get into sort of like more on the court and some more actual strategies about how to put this into your life, the number one thing that people out there should be doing is scheduling their time.
Yeah.
Calendar, you have to have some kind of calendar and some kind of schedule for your time. It is almost impossible to be disciplined if you don't actually have a plan for your day.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think, everybody's got their own methodology for doing that, right? Like whether it's, if you're a day planner person or if you're like I love Asana, it's my task manager of choice. But even if it would like makes you crazy to think about scheduling your life like that, right? Some people just couldn't do that.
Right.
Definitely schedule the times that you're going to do something, whether it's written down or whatever, right? So if you're saying, what I mean by that is, there's no way I can have my whole day mapped out, but I'm going to go to the gym before 10 a.m. every day. Or, whatever that is. Like, so you're picking that non-negotiable. Like this thing is going to happen. And then the rest of my day could be completely crazy,
Yes.
But a great way, I think, to couch or to kind of like bookend this stuff is to set up something that's a non-negotiable in the morning and set up something that's a non-negotiable in the evening.
Absolutely.
So for me, for example, that would be working out because I like working out in the morning. It could be meditating, whatever your morning ritual is. And then that non-negotiable evening ritual, which my recommendation would be that it's a meal, the last meal of the day somewhere around sunset. It lines up with so many other things that just make a huge difference. And it's like if you can pick two things, one in the beginning and one in the end, then the rest will, start to come along.
Well, the rest is all about now increasing your performance, because if you want to be a higher performer, you want to perform at a more optimal level, that's when you're going to get more granular. But at first, it's just about, like Adam said, having that morning and evening routine, at least having those dialed in, or at least having the things that are going to be encompassed in those time periods is going to be huge. And what that does for you is it starts to calm the mental state. It starts to get rid of some of that extra stress about how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Wait, I woke up, I had coffee, but then I didn't go to the gym because I had to go to work earlier. There's so much more chaos in your mind if you don't at least have those two routines or those two systems dialed in. And obviously things come up. Obviously, sometimes, you're out late or you're up early or things change, but you can still schedule that in. You can still ahead of time say, tomorrow or Wednesday, I'm going to have to go to work early. So I'm going to purposefully skip my workout on Wednesday because I know it's going to give me stress to try to work it in when I have all this other stuff going on, or actually I can squeeze it in at lunch. Whatever it is, you can put it into a focused construct. You don't have to let life just happen to you.
Totally.
And this is going to make such a difference on just the level of stress you have about getting things done and about this idea of being disciplined.
Yeah.
It's going to feel so much easier and not even like that big mean word of discipline, because now it's just, I have a schedule and I have a plan and that's just what I'm doing.
Right. I think there's something you said in there that's really important too. And kind of like I was talking about, as failures start to accumulate, it just gets harder to kind of get over the hill. Like there's so many rocks in your backpack, you just can't summit. You kind of get to that point. And there's something that's incredibly powerful on two sides about making the decision not to go to the gym.
Yes.
Right. So if you're like, I'm looking at my schedule, I know it's going to be tight, I'm probably not going to get it done. make the decision to do it. Because when you consciously decide not to do it, that registers in your brain as a win.
Yes.
You know, it's like, nope,
100%.
I chose not to go to the gym. And the likelihood of that not going to the gym on Wednesday, sliding into not going into the gym on Thursday, and then eventually Friday, and then next thing you know, it's been a couple weeks, goes way down because you made that choice. And there's something that sticks. Like if you just accidentally don't go to the gym because time got away from you, it's like a gray area in your mind. But if you made the decision not to do it, that's very clear. You're like, no, yesterday I decided not to go to the gym. Today I have to go to the gym. Like it adds up quicker as like, I don't really know how to say it, but it's like it stays top of mind in a way that doesn't allow you to all of a sudden go a couple of weeks and you're like, shit, when was the last time I went to the gym?
Right.
It's like, it's a decision that was made, and that seems to register differently,
Yeah, absolutely. If folks out there have ever been part of our meditation challenge, you've probably done the meditation where I talk about chaos energy. And, there really is such a thing as chaos energy. And that's why this scheduling and this, being concise about decision making ahead of time can get rid of that chaos energy. And chaos energy looks like, you kind of knew that you weren't going to make it to the gym on Wednesday because, in the back of your mind, you realize looking at the time and all the things there were to do that it probably wasn't going to work out, but you sort of danced around it and you let all that energy just hang out in chaos in your mind. And then when the day came, you just fumbled through it going, oh, wait, am I going to get to this or not? No, okay, I guess I'm not going to get to that. I need to reroute. And it's just, you're living your life in this chaos that you could have avoided if you would have just looked at your calendar and really got realistic about what's possible for you.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, again, not to harp on this, but like discipline becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
Because now it's just about organization. It's just about like checking the boxes and putting the stuff together.
Right. Yeah. You've created a framework for it, because there's nothing worse than like looking back and realizing you've been living life accidentally. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, well, I accidentally did this and I accidentally did that. And I think this happens, now this might be a bit of a reach, but I think this happens to people who, and everybody's met somebody like this where they're like, oh man, again, my, battery was dead on my car, or today, that's like all of these things in life just seem to happen to them and happen to them and happen to them. And I think that you really do make your own luck with a lot of this. It's like how much of this was, for how many days was your check engine light on? That, what I mean?
Yeah,
like, before all of a sudden something went wrong and it happened to me again. It's like, all right, you're allowing life to happen to you.
Yes.
And there's no doubt that there's like a metered approach to this, right? It's like you could be real neurotic about this kind of stuff, and like, oh, well, I got to be prepared for this and prepared for that and prepared for this. And the reality is you can't prepare for everything.
Right.
Life's going to throw stuff at you that you can't deal with.
Absolutely.
But if the vast majority of your life is lived intentionally, then, those little curveballs here and there can actually be kind of fun, right? It's like, well, I wasn't expecting that, but here's what I'm going to do about it,
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said intentionally, because that's really what this is about. And I think that is a nice counterpart to this word discipline is intention.
Yeah.
Intentionality. Like this isn't about the struggle of being disciplined. This is about the joy of being intentional with how you're spending your beautiful, precious time and energy.
Right.
And I think that the other thing that really needs to get looked at beyond this, when you look at that chaos energy and you look at why people are letting life happen to them, you've got to be real with yourself. You've got to take a moment to say, why am I choosing to engage with my life this way? Is it because I'm actually afraid of taking responsibility for myself? Because once you step into that, now there's no one else to blame. Now there's no blaming the car or the traffic or the whatever. Sure. You no longer have the chaos to blame.
Right.
Now it's just you, and you also somewhere deep down inside know that once you step into that, you can't even lie to yourself about it.
Yeah. No, that's 100% true.
Yeah. And so it's really important to stop and get real about this stuff. Just really think about, why do I continue to let this happen to me? Why do I continue to participate? And this might take some deep soul searching. This might take, a couple rhythmia retreats or whatever. But really, whatever it is, if it's starting a meditation practice, if it's starting something to just slow the mind down and start to get a handle on that chaos energy, you've got to take the driver's seat on this stuff. You cannot just constantly be the passenger in your life.
Yeah. No, it's true. And, and an interesting example of this that's coming up recently is, we're about a month deep into Body Mind Roadmap. Right. Which is, it's a group of people who've just had it, with fiddling their way through nutrition at a lot of different levels, and they're really ready to just get to the root of what it is that makes this stuff happen, And so we're just about 4 weeks into it. And we really haven't even started talking about food yet. We've literally been working on habits and lifestyle factors around eating.
Right.
We're talking about habits like eating slowly and paying attention to the things that you're doing with your, being intentional about the way that you eat. There's not even a list of like, eat this and don't eat that. We haven't gotten anywhere near any of that stuff yet. And people are down pounds and inches, considerably down pounds and inches from literally just paying attention to how they feed themselves and how they're interacting with their food. And voila, these things are starting to occur.
Yes.
And it's remarkable to see. It's not surprising.
Right.
Because this, ultimately this is what we do and why we created the program.
Right.
But it's remarkable to see how this stuff can start to change, and it's, it just really kind of highlights what it is that we're talking about here, is that it's the discipline in the things that you can control right now that add up over time and make this massive difference, and you could apply it to any aspect of your life. Really, it's like you said in the beginning, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you chunk things out and you make them attainable and you get the skills around how to do it so that it's, you're lowering that barrier every time you do that, right? Like, oh, well, I know how to do that. That's way easier than, well, yes, I need to do that. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to learn these 40 things. Like, what are the odds of that actually getting done? Right. When you say, oh, well, the first thing I need to do is this.
Yes.
And you do it.
Right.
And you're already ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. And I think that, this is why we consistently make programs that are 6 months, 9 months, 12 months at a time, because this stuff doesn't happen overnight. This stuff takes discipline. It takes creating the system to get there, and the understanding and the reflection and the awareness of yourself and the way that you are about things in your life. And so, whatever you want to get disciplined, find a system. Find something that can help you understand the facets of what it takes to become a disciplined person around that particular subject.
Right.
Because this is the point, is that discipline is not this, linebacker that you're trying to get through and finally score a touchdown on. Ooh, got that one.
Yeah, I was waiting for a home run, but you nailed it.
I got through it. Discipline is this thing that you dance with. It's this thing that you are, that you're in communication with, that you are trying to inform it and have it inform you until you become in this symbiotic relationship, and it's no longer this forceful fight.
Right.
And I think this is really honestly where people get so stuck and just give up on the whole idea of discipline, is that it just always sounds like it's going to be hard forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be hard forever.
Right.
It can actually turn into, like you said, it can be fun. It can be spontaneous. It can actually have all these other colors and facets if you learn how to interact with it.
Yeah.
And so I just think that discipline's got a bad rap.
Yeah.
It can be your friend.
So something to think about, and I'm sure everybody could come up with an example of this, but think about somebody in your life who you would consider disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's I could name 20 off the top of my head. I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's really disciplined. But if you ask them about it, they probably wouldn't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And this goes exactly to what you're just saying. It's not hard forever. Like at some point, it's just who you are.
Yes.
And those around you will say, wow, that guy's really disciplined. But to you, you're not like, oh, you're right, I am really disciplined.
This is really hard.
It's really hard to say this way. In the beginning, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely is going to be. And again, that can be metered by the how far away you set your benchmarks.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like just biting off little chunks at a time is going to lead you there.
Right.
You know, but that feeling, and there's a guy, Jocko Willink, that comes to mind. He's a former SEAL commander, and he's kind of all over the place these days, but he's a pretty serious dude, you know, when it comes to a lot of this stuff. And I follow him on Instagram, and every single morning he posts a picture of his watch when he woke up. And it's always somewhere between like 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning. And then the next one is, he calls it his aftermath post. And it's just a picture of the gym, like whatever sweaty chalk outline is like left, you know,
Right.
or because he does a lot of consulting now. So like it's like a hotel room or whatever. But like those are the things that he posts. And I know for sure, you know, and he does it because it's inspirational for the people that are like, you know, yeah, man, get up and get it every single day is kind of his overall jam. But it's just what he does. It's just who he is. He's not, and I don't know the guy, but I wouldn't say that he's like, well, the thing that makes me disciplined is that I get up at 4:30 every morning. You know, it's just not part of the deal. It's just who he's become, you know.
It's the things that he's decided are important to him in his life have required him to set up his morning that way and create a routine that maybe did require discipline. And I'm sure being an ex-military person, that was probably
it's
baked in the cake.
Yeah.
But again, this is what it looks like, you know, when you decide things are important to you and you decide that this is the kind of person I want to be, then suddenly you start looking at the systems and the construct of what supports that, and just take it one thing at a time. And if you're going to take that first step, we can't encourage you enough to start with your morning routine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's by far, obviously your evening routine is right behind the corner, but if you're going to start with something, you can really change the course of your day by the way you spend your morning.
Yeah, no, it's really true, and like on a lot of levels. So you know what? I think it would be way easier if you just talked with a drawl. You know what I mean? It's like the super sloppy cursive of English, of the spoken word. You know what I mean? Just kind of drizzle it off at the end.
Well, I mean, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, but on a lot of levels, that I completely forgot what I was talking about. What was I saying?
Well, we were talking about the morning routine and how important it is.
In the morning, on a lot of levels, it's super important because that is, so if you want to get better sleep, and we talk about this in our programs all the time, a good night's sleep starts the morning that you woke up.
Right.
It's all about anchoring your circadian rhythm. And the same goes with food. You know, there's a circadian clock that regulates your digestion as well. So if you want to nail this stuff, the morning is the time to get it done.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
And I will add in there that in the morning, especially right when you wake up and you're still in that somewhat of a dream state, I think it's the theta state. If you do your meditation right then, especially, you know, folks are in our guided meditations, they're in our meditation challenge. We also have a free 7-day meditation challenge that circulates around. But find something where you can have that few minutes of mindfulness first thing in the morning while your brain is still coming into its awakeness, because it's a really magical space that the brain is, and it's like very imprintable.
Yeah.
And so if you can put some positive influence, some positive words, some positive music, something to, you know, sort of steer the ship in that positive direction first thing in the morning, it can make a huge difference in your day.
Yeah, it's like get in there before your mind takes over.
It's
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? Before it fully comes online.
And it's true because the mind will just do whatever it wants, right? So if it comes online, it's like, what do I need to worry about? What do I need to do? You know, where's the kids? Where's the dog? What bills are due? But if you can just catch it before it comes all the way online and just give it that little bit of positive imprint, you'd be amazed the difference it'll make.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is one of the reasons in Authentic Self, we do a 5-minute affirmation every morning, and it's meant to be done immediately when everyone wakes up, because we want to get that imprint right away before the monkey mind jumps in and says, what should we be worried about?
Yeah. You were, if I remember correctly, you were a little bit concerned when you went to bed. So let's come up with reasons.
Let's pick back up where we left off.
Let's see, what was that thing?
And in fact, I tried to wake you up at 4 a.m. to remind you about it, but...
Yeah, you got up so early and went outside and got that 20 minutes of sunlight, and I just couldn't break you out of that really good sleep you're getting.
Exactly, right? So we hope that this podcast has been helpful for you. We know that sometimes creating new habits and being successful, especially at things that we have yet to experience true success at, it can be a difficult process, and it can be disheartening at times to try to ramp yourself back up into being disciplined because you're worried about that heartbreak. You're like, man, I summoned all this discipline up one time and then I lost it and I don't know if I can get it back. It's so hard. And you can go through these little heartbreaks because it took so much energy to get yourself to that place. And you're so afraid that if you do it again and you lose it again, it'll be even harder the next time.
Right.
And so this is where it really comes up into like the nurturing part, the self-love part, the way you talk to yourself about it, the way you do it one step at a time, the way you reassess and reevaluate if things aren't working in the way that you thought they should or they used to. And this is where the dance of it comes in, so that you don't have to feel in despair about trying to ramp yourself back up into this big, huge obstacle of discipline.
Right. Yeah. And there's something to that too, that, I mean, really knowing yourself and how you react in those kind of, to this kind of stuff, like the whole on the wagon, off the wagon scenario. Like, are you a person who can hop on and hop off without losing speed? Or are you a person who like hops off and the thing just crashes and you got to go build a new wagon and then hop back on it someday? And I mean, people know that about themselves, and it's going to vary in aspects of your life, right? You might be like a hop on, hop off person in some aspects, and in others you're a crash and burner, right?
Right.
And so you probably know that about yourself, and so I think ensuring that you're applying the right level of discipline to those kind of things, and this reminds me of something that we get this question a lot, especially in the wintertime. Like, oh man, I'm not feeling good today. Should I work out when I'm sick or should I not work out when I'm sick? And invariably the answer, like the answer from a physiology perspective, is that a little bit of movement never hurt anybody if you can get up and do it, but don't burn yourself any deeper into the ground. That's the sort of blasé physiology piece of it. Probably the most important question, like the follow-up question, is if you take today off, is that going to impact you getting back into the gym?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or can you legitimately take a day down and then tomorrow you're going to be back on?
Right.
Are you a hop on, hop off here?
Are you a slippery sloper?
Are you a slippery sloper? Because that's it. Like, even if you went through the motions, you got up, you didn't feel great, you went to the gym, you cruised on the elliptical or the rower, or you maybe just walked through the door and turned around and walked back out, hopefully after disinfecting the equipment that you touched. That's better.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You need that level of discipline to continue to keep the ball rolling, right?
Yes.
Versus somebody that doesn't. And so I hope that makes sense, because I think it really makes a massive difference. And you apply that to the nutrition piece. People talk about cheat meals. People talk about, I'm going to do this for 6 days on, and then I'm going to take 2 days and just do whatever I want. And that can be fantastic for some people.
Yes.
And a complete train wreck for others. And you just need to know that about yourself, and then make that decision, like that you were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast. Pre-negotiate that stuff.
Right.
And like, look, I know this is a problem for me, so I'm not going to let it happen. And if it does happen, then I'm going to guarantee that I do X.
Yes.
This isn't a big deal for me, so I'm just not going to worry about it.
Right.
Right. But make those decisions while you have a full belly, you know what I mean? Your brain's fully ramped up. There's no, manufactured emergency or like weird, extra emotion around whatever it is that you're talking about. Sort this stuff out with yourself.
Yes.
So that when it comes time, you already have a mode. You've already got a standard operating procedure for dealing with this scenario,
Yeah, absolutely. And a great way to actually sort that out is to do some journaling ahead of time. Sometimes just having it swirling around in your mind still feels a little bit like that chaos energy, and you can't quite pull out the pieces that you've decided on. So, take a minute and write down what's going on inside. What are the things that you're grappling with, and what are the, pre-negotiated terms that you're deciding on. And I think that can make a really big difference to get it out of your brain and onto paper.
Yeah.
And this is the same reason why getting it out of your brain and into the calendar is so important as well. Everything can't live in your brain. It's overwhelming. It's already overstimulated from the world that we live in, the loads of responsibility that we have, the loads of stimulus. if you can offload some of this stuff and get it into other systems of management, it's going to make this whole thing a lot more sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. And puts you like way less likely at risk for like running on Venice Beach, arguing with yourself out loud, which in Venice is totally legit.
I mean, I would not be the only person doing that morning. And in fact, yeah. So, but just, don't be embarrassed about the voice in your head. It's okay. We all have it. But, this is really important stuff for you guys. And we really want you to be successful. We're hitting March and a lot of that New Year's stuff is wearing off and we're starting to get into the spring. And there's all of this, there's kind of this in-between time where we're coming out of winter. We've been incubating a bunch of ideas and thought processes, and we're about ready to want to get back into action, kind of spring back forward into a little bit more aggressive approach in our life. So start thinking about this stuff so that as spring comes around, you can just have this stuff more systematized and ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's smart.
Awesome. We hope you guys got a lot out of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly did. I feel much more disciplined now. Do you?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a, what's the word?
A disciplinarian.
No, it's like if you're I want to say beacon, but that's not it. I'm not a beacon of discipline. Like you could be a beacon of hope.
Yeah.
But I'm not a beacon of discipline.
I don't think a beacon of discipline
I'm
is
super
appropriate
disciplined.
here.
That's the bottom line.
I'm going to go put stuff in all 7 of my calendars now.
Perfect.
Awesome, guys. Well, we hope that you have a wonderful beginning to March. We're kicking off Unveil Your Wellness and our meditation challenge. If you've yet to check out any of our programs, hop over to BeTheWellness.com.
Oh, yeah. A brand new
We've got
BeTheWellness.com.
a brand new website.
Yeah.
That is very lovely, if I do say so myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite exciting because it was quite a feat to get it up and running and to get all the new changes. Again, Affirm is one of those changes. So we're really excited that we got that integrated, brand new website, all the awesomeness that you would expect there with a fresh new coat of pretty on it.
Coat of pretty. Of pretty. You just got to roll it together. It's a coat of pretty.
It's a coat of pretty. All right, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Love you. Bye.